Hi guys, I'm Alex and this is my model Mary. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna show you guys how to do a modern, classic, long layered haircut. And how I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna do this 100% dry. So now the reason for that is, can you see Mary got a haircut here and it's not blended. So can you guys see how choppy and how disjointed it is? So the reason that happens is when you guys go in and you do too much hair cutting when it's wet, it creates lines and indentions. So I'm gonna show you guys how to flat iron the hair, and then I'm gonna show you the modern, classic, long layered haircut. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do when we're doing a dry haircut is we need to smooth it out and give it a nice, soft bevel so that we're emulating, like when you cut wet hair, it's a nice, perfect straight line and we can see the shape. So I'm gonna take a center back parting and then I'm gonna come up. Her hair is pretty straight, so I can come in and I can take nice, big 1/2 inch sections. And then I'm gonna come through here and I'm gonna create a nice, soft bevel. So I want to turn these ends so it's falling nice and flat so I can see all of the imperfections. So I straighten through it and I hold it with my comb and let that cool down. Taking about a 1/2 inch section, a nice horizontal section, clip that up out of the way, do the same thing on the opposite side. And I'm really only straightening through the mids and the ends. Like I said, I just want to straighten out the ends so I can see exactly what I'm cutting. Comb it when I'm done. Make sure it's going to be nice and straight. Okay, next section. Now the next section is going to transition into the front hairline. So same thing, I'm about 1 inch up from the hairline in the front. Make sure those ends have a slight bevel, but not too much. Same thing on the opposite side. This section is going to lead me into the side. Put that up. Other side up. So now as I'm working in towards the face frame, here's where we want to see a slight bevel. We want to have a nice curvature so we can see how the face frame is forming. Okay, now I can take the last 2 sections down, comb this down, and start to create my curvature. it's a slight, almost like a half moon crescent shape. Put the iron in the hair, start the iron moving, put the comb beneath the hair, and create a soft bevel. Usually I'll go back a couple times on the ends, usually 2 to 3 passes on the ends to get it in a nice curvature. Okay, so once I straighten it, I like to go back and I hit it with the cold air to cool it down to reduce the static. Okay, so before I start cutting, I like to use a soft cream, a frizz serum. I like to use the after party, so a good amount of that and work it through so the hair is a little more pliable. Also too, if there's any static, it helps calm down the static. Work that product through, and then I'll just give it a nice little brush. Okay, so by smoothing it out, we can see, you guys can see where the imperfections and the disjointedness of the haircut is. Okay, so when I dry cut, I like to use a bigger scissor. So this is a Hikari, this is a 6.5 inch, so that way I can deep parallel point cut and I can cut into it deep. When you have a small scissor, you can't get in there and cut into the hair as much. So first section, I'm going to take a center back section, and then I'm going to come up. So the sections are always going to be determined by how dense or how thin the hair is. So she's got about a medium density. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take about a 1/2 inch section, slight diagonal back section. Same thing on the opposite side. Flip that away. And then we want to have them tilt the head forward, obviously. Okay, so first section, I'm going to comb all this hair down at natural fall, okay? And I'm going to take off about 1 inch, so I'm going to comb this down at natural fall, and I'm going to cut square. Now I'm going to point cut this length, so I'm going to use my hand as a cutting board. I'm going to start the scissor, and then I'm going to move it from left to right. Okay, I'm going to cut the line, I'm going to comb it down, and I'm going to check it. Okay, so that line looks good. So now I'm going to work off about 1/2 inch sections. Diagonal back. Okay, so center section, comb this down natural fall, and I'm going to point cut to follow my guide from underneath. Comb that down. So the second section, I'm going to over direct the corner in to maintain a square line. if you don't over direct the corner in, it's gonna get round and it's gonna get shorter. So second section, over directed in, I'm gonna follow my line. And by point cutting it, it creates a nice soft edge. And we don't have to worry about graduation from underneath. So then the third section, I'm over directing the corner in this way and pulling it up. And I stand to the side in more of a lunge position with my knees bent. Center, point cut, and remove the line. Not too much to come up on this side. So I'm really just gonna come in here and soften that. Working back to the right side, take a 1/2 inch section. First section gets over directed into the center. So first section, comb this back over the shoulder, over direct the corner in, take off the corner, okay? And then at this point, now I'm gonna start pivoting out this way. So I'm gonna comb this over the shoulder and I'm gonna cut at a downward angle this way and follow my guide from underneath. Point cut, remove the softness. Then I'm gonna pivot down this way. So I'm pivoting around like this so that there's not a big heavy corner here. Go back and do some point cutting to soften it. Take another 1/2 inch section. Comb it down, there's my guide. Okay, now I'm going to start pivoting around the shoulder. So then here's my perimeter and here's where the layers start. So I'm going to come in here and point cut and connect that. So I'm going to comb it down and around, leave some nice space, and I'm going to start softening that with some point cutting. So the texture is always visual. So you cut a little bit, comb it down, see how it looks, and then go back in and hit it again. It's not going to be something that you just cut once and you're done. It's all a visual process. So not only does it need to look right, it needs to feel right. So then see, comb it down and around and see how it's a nice contour. So you keep combing it and you keep working it. Little bit sticking out, so I'm going to take a vertical section, over direct it forward, and I'm going to slide cut from a short to a long to get rid of it. Okay, so then, just to soften it out a little bit, I'm going to take a vertical section, over direct it over my knuckles, and I'm going to point cut into it to soften it. Okay, so I'm happy with how that side looks. Now we're going to work off of the right side. Take about a 1/2 inch diagonal back section from the hairline. Section the hair out of the way. Now, the first thing we want to check for is the balance from the left side to the right side. So I comb it down and see where that right side is falling. So the right side's falling at the cheekbone. So they don't have to be identical, but they need to be sisters, okay? They need to have some degree of balance. So, and naturally, hair is always gonna get kind of layered out and it's gonna be shorter when there's a deep side part like that because there's less hair here. So this is always gonna end up being a little bit shorter. So if anything, this side needs to be a little bit shorter to combat that. So I'm gonna comb this down and around. And I'm gonna slide cut from the short to long, pulling the hair in the opposite direction of where it's gonna live. Okay, take the next section below it, comb it down and around and see it's a little disjointed. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna deep parallel point cut to soften that and break it up. I'm gonna go back in and comb it down and see how I did. So I'm not satisfied with that, so I need to go back in and soften it. Comb it down and around, I'm going to slide cut to blend that a tiny bit. Next section, I'm going to take about an inch diagonal back, comb this hair forward, follow my guide. Okay, I'm going to low elevation and I'm going to stand on the opposite side and I'm going to cut short to long, pulling the hair in the opposite direction of where it's going to lie. That way I can ensure that I'm going to be able to connect down here to the length. If you stand here and you cut it this way, you're going to create a big hole. So comb this down and around, stand in the opposite direction, and cut short to long. So once I do that, I come back over on the same side. It's a little choppy, so I'm going to deep parallel point cut. Cutting into it the last 2 inches. When you deep parallel point cut, you always cut in to about 1 to 2 inches. You never cut any deeper than 2 inches. Okay, that's a little disjointed. Stand on the opposite side, cut short to long, down and around. Okay, so third section on the left side. Okay, I'm going to comb this down and around. There's some long bits right here, so I'm going to slide cut that stand on the opposite side. Cut short to long. I'm going to do a little slide cutting to blend it. Hair's a little thick. Comb it down and around, and I'm going to start from the baseline. I'm going to start deep parallel point cutting, and I'm going to start cutting up. Comb that down to natural fall. It looks good. Parallel point to the transition point from the line where the face frame starts. The transition point from where the one length is and the face frame really have to come in here, and you really have to take a lot of weight out right in this transitional point. So I take some weight out, go back in and comb it down. So when you're dry cutting, the balance becomes super important. So the amount of texture you have in the face frame, you need to have the same amount of texture through the baseline and through the layers. Okay, so I'm just going to blow this hair off. Okay, now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to start detailing the perimeter line. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to take the same sectioning like I took to cut the line. So I'm going to comb that at natural fall and I'm going to deep parallel point cut to soften that perimeter line. Because now I need to create a nice textured, soft line like we created around the face frame. So, deep parallel point cut, go back in, and this is where the balance becomes important. You need to have the same amount of texture throughout the entire haircut. So, go in, comb the hair down, deep parallel point cut. So the thicker the hair, the more texture. The thinner the hair, the less amount of texture. So I go left to right, right to left. Comb the hair, see how I did? This section is a little thicker, so this is my third pass. Okay, comb it down, and it's almost there. I can see the line breaking, so comb that down and that's done. Now this section is where I started to pivot. So you always deep parallel point cut the same fashion that you cut your line. And just a little bit more texturizing at the transition point and the side is done. Move it with your hands, see how it falls. It's nice and soft. Now I'm going to work in on the right side. So the more hair, the more texturizing you're going to have to do. Comb it down, see how it's blending. Pick it back up, take some more weight out. Feel it with your hands, move it around. How does it look to the eye, and is it looking balanced? So I do this section by section. You don't want to keep picking up the same sections and cut through it. Take this up and lift it separate from the previous section. Cut into it. I'm gonna move to the corner, comb this hair down. She doesn't need too much softening. Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, so now we cut the perimeter, we cut the face frame, we texturized the end. So it still feels a little heavy because she has these short layers in the front and she doesn't have any layers in the back other than the texture. See how it's still falling heavy in the corners. Okay, so now we need to add a long layer through the back. So starting in the center back, I'm going to take a vertical section from the crown, and when you're dry cutting, you can take pretty big sections. You don't have to take small, tiny sections. You take sections as big as you can see through and as big as you can handle, okay? So I'm taking a vertical section, I'm elevating up to 90 degrees, and I'm gonna cut a short to a long, okay? Comb this up, bring my elbow up, drop it down, okay, and I want a short to long this way. Okay, so I'm gonna come in here, and I'm gonna point cut while creating a short to long. I'm gonna drop that, I'm gonna re-pick it up, re-establish my line. It's a nice short to long, but it needs to be broken. So I'm gonna come in, deep parallel point cut to soften it. Comb that section down, see how it did, and that's good. So now I'm gonna pivot to the right, taking part of my previous section in with part of my new section, comb it straight back, elevate it up to 90 degrees, and I'm gonna cut short to long following my guide. Point cut short to long to soften it. Let the hair drop down, recomb it. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna check my line, and then I'm gonna add some texture. Okay, it could be a little shorter. This side's a little thicker, so I'm gonna need to come back in and do a little bit more point cutting, okay? Third section on the right. Vertical section, elevate it to 90. Check for my guide underneath, and I'm going to point cut to break the line. Recomb it, and I'm going to come back in and I'm going to deep parallel point cut to soften it. Recomb it, check my texture. Give it one more pass, and that's good. Okay, so this side, I'm gonna work in and I'm gonna take a vertical section. I'm gonna elevate this forward, and the same thing. We wanna create a short to a long, so I wanna kind of soften that a little bit. And then take everything from the ear forward, over direct it forward. And see how there's a long point here. So I wanna cut, I wanna create short to a long this way as well. Texturize the line at the same time. Comb it forward, needs a little bit more weight reduction. Okay. Back to the center, now I'm going to work into the left. Take part of my center section with part of my second section. Elevate it up to 90. Check for my guide underneath, cut short to long. Point cut to soften the line. Comb it back up, and texturize to blend it. Third section. Cut short to long. Come back in and soften the line. Over direct this forward. There's a long bit here, so I'm going to slide cut that down. Last section. Vertical section, over direct it forward. There's a long bit, so I'm going to slide cut from a short to a long. Okay, now at this point I'm going to grab about a ½ inch behind the ear. I'm going to take a vertical section. I'm going to over direct all of this stuff forward. Okay, and I'm going to check it. So see, we have some loose bits here. The guide is here, so I'm going to slide cut from a short to a long down this way. Take the next section behind it. So at this point I'm in the center back, over direct all this hair forward, and just do a nice little check. Do a little slide cut. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So I'm going to take about an inch back from the hairline, over direct this forward, and this time I'm going to cut down. So I'm going to cut down, slide cut, this way. Take the next section, comb it into the previous. Little slide cut, blend it, looks good. Take all the hair from the center back, over direct it forward. This stuff is a little heavy down here. Deep parallel point cut into the transition point. Okay, blow the hair off. Okay, and then at this point, I always have my client tilt her head forward so I can see the balance from the left side to the right side. So I bring all the hair from the center back and I bring it over the shoulder, and I'm going to comb it all forward. Comb it all down and around and see if there's any little loose bits sticking out. You know, like see we have some loose bits here, we can come in and remove that stuff. And then especially if this line needs to be squared off a little bit, I can square that off and make it a little even. So see, there's some little loose bits sticking up here. And this layer is still a bit too long, so I'm going to come in here and slide cut so that the hair needs to be a nice, soft transition. Comb it down. This little corner here needs some softening. Okay, so see how good the left side looks, how it's all soft. Okay, that's what we're looking for. So now I just need to do the same thing on the opposite side. Comb this hair down and around. Make sure the balance is good from left to right. Comb this hair down and around, and it's perfectly balanced. Okay, great. So that concludes our haircut. So let me go through and let's do a rundown. So first thing, we cut the perimeter. So we took center parting, working off of diagonal back sections, elevated the hair down. First section in the center, the second sections, the corners get over directed in. Okay, and then we get to the crown. And then once we get to the crown, we start the sections, we use our guide from the square length in the back, and it pivots round this way, okay? And after we pivot, to create our line, then we come in and we take diagonal back sections, over direct the hair forward, and cut a short to a long. then lastly, we come in and we take vertical sections, elevate it up to 90 degrees, and cut it short to long. And then we go back through and we make sure that all of our texture is even with a nice point cut to soften and a deep parallel point cut to break it up. And here's the final result. Thanks, guys.